My name is Ava, and at 34, I share my life with my husband James. We both work for the company my father-in-law founded, even though he has retired. My father-in-law, a visionary entrepreneur, transformed a small construction company into a massive enterprise with an annual revenue of $250 billion. Despite his forceful approach, everyone admires his remarkable business acumen. James, chosen to succeed his father, grew up as a pampered child with a gentle character. Unfortunately, this gentle nature may not serve him well in the cutthroat world of business. In reality, he is incredibly indecisive, and I've started to question his suitability not just as a husband, but also as a CEO. James has even admitted that he's not cut out to be a CEO and might end up being just a figurehead. We've been married for 5 years, and lately I've become frustrated with his lack of initiative. In contrast, I consider myself decisive. During my father-in-law's active years, he appreciated this quality in me and often delegated various tasks. Before marrying James, I worked at a bank, managing finances, and always keeping the numbers in mind. Initially planning to become a full-time homemaker after marriage, my father-in-law requested that I work for the construction company. As I started working, he began involving me in board meetings, seeking my opinions on management matters. While the board members were initially skeptical, my consistent and relevant insights earned their respect. On the other hand, James, also a board member, rarely attended meetings, and strangely, this was deemed acceptable by everyone. One day, returning home from a meeting, I found James casually watching TV. Frustrated, I asked him why he didn't attend the meeting, emphasizing his key role. Without remorse, he replied, "Even if I attend, I don't really understand the discussions. Besides, the board members prefer you. So there's no problem, right?" I couldn't shake the feeling that my husband James was growing increasingly irritated by my active participation in board meetings. Despite his occasional remarks, my father-in-law had been diligently teaching me the intricacies of running the business, seemingly grooming me as his successor. Surprisingly, I found myself enjoying the challenges of management, striving to meet my father-in-law's high expectations. About 2 years into attending meetings, my father-in-law retired completely. In his absence, the board members turned to me for consultation on major decisions, sidelining James. I had hoped this situation would motivate James to step up his efforts, but instead, he became even more disengaged. Despite showing up at the office in the mornings, he would vanish by noon, retreating home for the rest of the day. His indifference to the company's affairs contrasted sharply with my growing responsibilities. As my workload increased post-retirement, I found myself shouldering duties akin to a CEO's. With our company's considerable size and workforce, I remained committed to enhancing sales and profitability for the sake of our employees. Our efforts bore fruit as sales began to soar. Immersed in the challenges of running the company, I became more engrossed in my work, while James seemed to be losing interest. Our conversations at home dwindled, and tensions crept into our relationship. Amidst this strain, James casually mentioned meeting my sister, Megan, for lunch. Megan, 2 years my senior, had recently divorced amid scandalous infidelity, which led to a tumultuous confrontation at our parents' home. James, with his gentle upbringing and calming demeanor, had intervened to diffuse the situation, earning Megan's admiration. "Megan mentioned something about you today," James remarked nonchalantly. "He handled my raging husband so effortlessly," Megan had told me. Megan couldn't stop praising James, her husband, even in the depths of anger, must have been disarmed by James's calm and easygoing demeanor. Megan managed to finalize her divorce, albeit with alimony payments, but the incident seemed to alter her perception of James. Previously, she viewed him as merely a rich, indecisive son, not particularly attractive. However, after witnessing his intervention, she seemed to regard him as a respectable business owner. As a newly single woman, Megan, drawn to wealth, saw James as a catch, a sentiment I couldn't fathom amidst my work-focused mindset. Little did she know, James was merely a figurehead in the company, lacking actual managerial duties. Megan's ex-husband, an elite employee of a foreign company, had once boasted to me at their wedding, flaunting his looks, intellect, and stylish demeanor. His betrayal perplexed me, for why would she cheat on such a remarkable husband? 3 months after James mentioned lunch with Megan, I returned home to find him unusually serious, his demeanor hinting at impending news. With a pounding heart, I waited for him to speak. And when he finally did, his words shook me to the core. Actually, Megan is pregnant with my child, and I want a divorce, he confessed, leaving me stunned and speechless. As if that revelation wasn't enough, he added that Megan intended to discuss matters on our next day off. Bewildered, I asked if he intended to marry my sister. With a troubled expression, James replied, "It's not that I want to marry her, but as she's carrying my baby, I suppose I have no choice." I sighed, accustomed to James's indecisiveness, and responded, "Well, if she's carrying your baby, I suppose it can't be helped. Let's discuss this when she comes over." It felt as though James and I couldn't make decisions together, prompting me to meet directly with my sister to resolve matters. Despite having already made up my mind about divorce, I felt the need to consult my father-in-law regarding the company's situation. As the daughter-in-law of the founder, I played a significant role in running the business, but a divorce would distance me from it. The following day, I visited my in-law's house and relayed my husband's words to my father-in-law. My mother-in-law, initially thrilled about the prospect of a grandchild, fell silent under my father-in-law's stern gaze. It appeared that she was more concerned about the grandchild than the company's management. After contemplation, my father-in-law smiled and expressed his desire for me to continue overseeing the company, disregarding James' actions. His prioritization of the company's management over his son or grandchild highlighted his commitment, despite having retired. With the job situation settled, it was time to address the future with my sister. On our day off, she arrived at my house with a triumphant smile, expressing pity that I couldn't conceive. She offered me consolation money and demanded that I leave the house immediately. Shocked by her audacity, I turned to James, who remained silent throughout the exchange. Despite being the root cause of the problem, his indifference appalled me. I calmly suggested involving a lawyer to resolve the issue of alimony and property division properly. Never did I imagine that my own sister would fall for a man like James. I responded to my sister's ironic remark with a touch of sarcasm, prompting her to glare at me sternly. However, she quickly regained her composure. In that moment, it dawned on me that she had come to realize the importance of character over looks and wealth. With a restrained laughter, I acknowledged her newfound understanding and commented, "That's great. From now on, live happily with James." It struck me as amusing to hear my sister talk as if she had a profound understanding of my husband's inner self. It became evident that my sister's perception of James might have been centered around wealth, possibly thinking he was the president of my father-in-law's company. Yet it seemed she hadn't received any direct information from him. As our discussion concluded, my sister announced her intention to move in and brought a moving company. Anticipating my sister's quick temper, I had already secured a new apartment. Simultaneously, I had hired a lawyer and prepared documents for the division of property and claims for alimony. The day after moving my belongings, negotiations for alimony and property division began with my husband and sister, both accompanied by my lawyer. Despite my husband's indifferent demeanor, my sister took charge of the conversation. "As I mentioned before, I'm willing to pay as much alimony as you want, so please decide at your convenience," she declared. In response, my lawyer decided to also pursue alimony from my sister, considering her ongoing payments to her ex-husband. While my lawyer had cautioned that claiming alimony from her might be challenging, my sister's assurance opened the door for a claim. When the discussion shifted to property division, my sister confidently asserted, "This mansion is originally James's family's, so it shouldn't be part of the division, right?" My lawyer, maintaining a stoic demeanor, responded, "This building and the land belong to the company, so it's up to the company to decide." It appeared even my husband assumed that this house belonged to his father. Is that so? I thought this house was Dad's, he casually remarked. On the other hand, my sister, taken aback, directed her confusion towards the lawyer. Wait a minute, so does that mean I can't live in this house? She queried. The lawyer, maintaining a professional demeanor, clarified. Since it's company property, you can continue to live here if the company allows it. My sister, visibly relieved, responded, Oh, you should have said that earlier. It'll be fine since James, the president, will be living here. The lawyer, momentarily surprised, burst into laughter. What are you talking about? Ava is the president, not James, he revealed, to my sister's shock. She immediately turned to my husband, demanding an explanation. James, you're not the president? Stepping in to clarify, I explained to my sister that James was merely an advisor without executive rights, while I held the position of executive director and president. Our father-in-law, the founder, had appointed me to these roles upon his retirement, based on my performance and the approval of other executives. Contrastingly, my husband, owing to his father's arrangement, received an executive salary as an advisor, despite lacking executive duties. Despite its title, his salary was pitiful compared to a regular employee's, reflecting his lack of involvement. Consequently, I managed all our living expenses, including the rent for our company-owned home, which my responsible father-in-law always charged. Amidst the laughter, the lawyer posed a question. Can we continue to rent this house to James? My sister reacted strongly to the lawyer's question about rent. What do you mean by rent? Are you suggesting that I take rent from James? Isn't it the company's property? Just make it free. She insisted, believing the mansion should be provided without charge. The lawyer, amused, presented the rent amount, prompting shock from both my sister and her husband, James, who seemed to be learning about it for the first time. The realization of the substantial rent for such a large house left them concerned about their financial situation. Given James's modest executive compensation, paying such high rent would strain their living expenses. Over their 5 years of marriage, they had depleted their earnings, and splitting the remaining savings was the only option for asset division. After the lawyer left, my sister, now aware that the mansion she had hoped for was rented, felt utterly deflated. James, with his usual grin, agreed when I suggested returning to his parents' house, where his mother was ecstatic about the pregnancy news. While I contemplated this decision, I couldn't help but find it amusing how much consideration I was giving to a man about to be my ex-husband. Despite my concerns about his unreliability in raising a child, I decided to leave it as none of my business. Turning to my sister, who had seemingly forgotten about her own alimony, I asked, Are you okay with the alimony payment, sis? You seemed pretty confident, but you're also paying your ex-husband, right? She was stunned, seemingly oblivious to the earlier discussion. Alimony? I have to pay it too. Her face snapped back to reality, and she expressed astonishment. In the morning you said, I'll give plenty of alimony, but you weren't expecting me to pay it, right? My salary is really low. James and my sister exchanged surprised glances, and I couldn't help but find their situation pathetic. While I had already obtained signatures on the divorce papers and alimony request documents, their reaction was somewhat amusing. My ex-husband, now married to my sister, had returned to his parents' home, as I had warned. However, constant quarrels erupted between my sister and my in-laws, primarily stemming from the lie about her being pregnant with my ex-husband's child. His mother, hoping for an heir, was furious. My father-in-law, who had disapproved of my sister from the start, fronted the alimony for James but hadn't even spoken to her. Despite her pleas, he refused to pay her alimony, stating he had no reason to be called Dad. Frustrated and unable to secure what she had hoped for, my sister left my ex-husband's family home without a word, seemingly having remarried him solely to bear the burden of alimony, which proved to be a foolish decision. Though my ex-husband considered reuniting with me, his father scolded him, deeming him unfit to have a family. Personally, I had no intention of getting back with him, having lost faith when he cheated on me with my sister. Disgusted by his indifferent attitude, I dismissed him from his executive position, and he now works as a temporary employee. I continued as the CEO, focusing on the company as the core aspect of my life. After the breakup, I had stopped believing in the possibility of remarriage, choosing to remain connected with my father-in-law for advice when needed. For now, my dedication lies in the success of the company, considering it a commitment akin to marriage for the sake of my employees.